So one thing I'm curious about as a professional localizer is we had a discussion a while ago about, you know, when I grew up, professional translation, at least in anime, was every word needed to be translated, even if there were some, you know, Japanese sayings or Japanese words. And I see the evolution of localization where I'm not sure how it is in gaming, but especially in anime, there are some words that are slipping through the crack now in terms of, you know, maybe sensei or senpai or san being left in like not only the subtitles, but even the English dub of some shows as well. What is your take in terms of, do you translate over a Japanese word? Where do you think that line should be?
I mean, it depends on the game, I suppose. Depends on the setting of the game. I can't imagine, you know, if the setting of the game is supposed to be, for example, like in, you know, 16th century Poland, you don't want to have he's my sensei in there. I mean, yeah, probably he's a great, you know, he's a great swordsman and he was your teacher, but I don't know if you'd want to put a sensei in there.
I think there's an anime in 1600 Poland,
Orb, yes.
It's about the like Catholic Church, church in general.
It's about heliocentrism.
But I mean, the thing is though, is that, you know, language does evolve. You know, we do borrow words. That's the thing with English. English is just the borrower of all languages.
Right.
I mean, you look at the lexicon of Japanese, they say that it's probably around 80,000 words. When you look at English, it's like 400 to 500,000. It's because we just borrow so many different words and we just keep adding things. And so if the game is taking place in a modern setting, then you would imagine, yes, if, you know, the kids are using senpai, you know, then they would use senpai in the game as well. But I would just say that, like, again, words do carry that cultural background that you wouldn't, you know, you wouldn't hear the word senpai in a 1930s gangster movie from America because that wasn't in the lexicon back then. So if your game is taking place in 1930s America, probably shouldn't use the word senpai. But
there's a part of me that really wants to hear
that. I mean, but that's the thing.
Tony senpai.
Tony-san.
What do you love to Tony senpai? Hey, Tony-san.
Tony-san. We're the Yakuza. I mean, that would actually be a great game that I'd love to play. But I mean, it depends. And again, it depends on what you're going for. So I think that there's room for all of that. It's just you have to choose because it could bring you out of that immersion. It's because it's all about immersion. Like, you know, whether it's anime or manga or games, especially games that you're playing yourself, it's about the immersion. And so you're going to want to think about, how do I keep the player immersed in that world? And so knowing that terms will sometimes pull out the wrong term. And it doesn't even have to be a Japanese term. And just, you know, you could use a term that's too modern. Like for Final Fantasy 16, we had a, in our style guide that I created, is that we wanted to make sure that we used, most terms had to be 18th century or earlier.
Right.
That we didn't want to use anything that was too modern, that like all different turns of phrases. But in addition to that, we didn't want it to sound too hardcore and be inaccessible. So basically it was just that a lot of the words that we use now are pre-18th century. It's just that a lot of like set phrases can be modern. And so it was about avoiding set phrases that are too modern and finding maybe older equivalents to those. Or if the older equivalents are just too like cryptic, then just find a different way to say it. But not use modern turns of phrases because we wanted to maintain this feel that it was, you know, it's a period piece that takes place in a more medieval setting. So we don't want to use modern turns of phrases.
How much research did you need to do for that in terms of?
We got a subscription of the Oxford English Dictionary. And when we were using new turns of phrases or words that kind of felt modern, I would go into the OED and see when was its first use. If the first use was like, you know, 1920, then I'm like, we can't use this. It sounds old, but actually it's from 1920, so we can't use it. And we kind of did the best to avoid stuff that was too modern sounding.
I just played Final Fantasy Tactics and it was amazing. And the whole time reading this, and you know, some of these words I've never heard of. And perhaps that's a mix of me being stupid and uneducated, but also obviously, a great deal of research. And I was thinking, like, is there just a guy? Is there a guy on standby they have who's like the guy for older English? They call him up and they're like, all right, Smith, we need you in here.
Just like a linguist.
We do have editors that are specialists in older English as well. Right. Yeah. And so the translators, again, do a lot of research on their end. I know the Final Fantasy Tactics War of the Lions remake.
So good.
And, this version iteration, the people that worked on that, like Joseph Reeder and Tom Mills, they have a lot of knowledge in that high fantasy language. They've done a lot of research, done of reading in that, and they're very well versed in that. And so they're comfortable creating that. And then we have editors, again, over in the UK, the editors that worked on Final Fantasy 16 also worked on, the same guys were involved with Final Fantasy Tactics as well as their voice recording. And so they're there making sure that things are consistent.
Really good.
Things that, we don't have too modern turns of phrases, or we don't have, a lot of times with those British based, like British voiced games, we try to also avoid Americanisms, like terms that are American and not British. We'll try to make sure that we're not saying autumn and that we're saying fall or things like that.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. It's because I've been like just completely ruined by all this, well, I guess being all over the internet and living in Japan. And I don't know which words I have that are, I'm like, is it depot or depot? I forget which one I say. Or I like some of these words, I'm like, which one do I say again? I don't know. And then I'll talk to my mom and she'll be like, how dare you? But it's so cool. It's interesting. And then it's a good point that you mentioned about, sounding too old as well. Because I remember I took an American friend of mine to the Globe Theatre to watch Shakespeare. And after the show, they were like, wow, it's so cool. You must have been able to understand everything. I was like, I didn't understand any of it. But I know Hamlet, so it was okay. The words they were saying, I did not understand.
Or even the way they're phrased. Yeah.
Well, that's also like poetic as well.
Sometimes it'll be a sentence that you might say, but in all the wrong order to make it sound more dramatic. Or the word, it's like when you sometimes can see online, you can see Bible verses that have changed throughout history. Obviously, that's one of the references that's been around for a very long time. And you can see like 1600, I kind of can get it. And then 13, you're like, what the heck are they saying? It doesn't even look like it anymore. But obviously historical context and what's happening at the time. And, have the Normans shown up yet? That kind of, all this kind of stuff really, changes. And, that's kind of when it starts to get into like, oh, that's the English that I start to recognize.
Right. And again, I mean, there's always the, we want to make it, unique. So we want to go super hardcore and we want to get
like, maybe we should.
But then that's the thing is like, I am guilty of it as well, especially like when I first started out and we're like, okay, we're going to do this high fantasy. It's like, okay, I've read George R. Martin. I need to throw in as many archaic things as possible. People don't need to understand this and this and this. And it gets to the point where it's just like, maybe there's a handful of people that are like, oh yes, I know this word from the 13th century, but everyone else is just like, I don't know what it means. And I think the biggest, like from 14, the biggest one that always pops up is that must needs. I must needs do this. And that's the thing is like, it's used in the Song of Ice and Fire novels a lot. And so I was like, oh, well, George R. Martin uses it. I can use it too. And then they put it in. And then probably like 2 or 3 months, there's a forum post that says, oh, this should be, you just must. There's an extra needs in there. I'm like, no, actually. but then you start thinking about it. It's like, wait, so if 90% of the people are like, this is a mistake, then maybe I shouldn't just be using this anymore.
And like there is English language, right?
And so that was the thing with Final Fantasy 16, like learning from maybe going a little bit overboard on Final Fantasy 14. For example, there's this character Urianger that goes way overboard. He just ye old English, Ren fair, hardcore. You don't know what he's saying. The thing is, that's his character now. He's a scholar that he's speaking above you in this scholarly language.
And so works for his character.
It works for his character. But the thing is, we went way overboard on that. I apologize.
That must have been a lot of fun though. From like a creative standpoint, that must have been really fun to do that.
It's not fun anymore. No one wants to translate Urianger because they're like, oh my God, Koji, you ruined it for all of us. But that's, so learning from that and then going to 16, like, okay, we're going to do, high fantasy again. It's like, well, what is a good point? We want it to sound authentic. We want it to sound like a period piece. We don't want it to sound too modern, but we don't want it to be alienating for a lot of for our players. And so we looked at what the Game of Thrones TV show did.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've read the books are a little bit more hardcore on the archaic language.
Yes.
But if you watch the TV show, it's a little bit easier for the masses to understand. The same thing with like The Last Kingdom. They use it takes place in, again, 11th century Great Britain. So you'd think it would be super hardcore. They make it feel medieval,
I mean,
but
it's all about the feeling.
It's about the feel. And so finding that balance where finding the words that, yes, these are modern words, but actually they originated back then. So it's okay to use them. And then finding this balance that feels like it's going to feel natural. So people aren't being like, oh, it takes me out of it when they hear too much of it. That's just really difficult to do. And we were blessed with a lot of time because we were working on the script so early that we could go over many, many different iterations. Whereas I know a lot of games, they'll be like, here's the script. You've got like 1 month to translate the whole thing. Yeah. And you just kind of get on the page what you can get on the page. And, because it's about polish. I mean, you spend 6 months on anything, it's going to get 6 months of goodness. If you spend a week on something, it's going to get a week. So.
Yeah. This reminds me of not exactly a sad conversation, but a humbling conversation. Because I went back to England recently, and one thing that's always in language as it evolves is like slang terms, right? It's every region has their own slang terms, and so one of my friends is a primary school teacher, and one of growing up in England, one of the biggest things I was proud of was all of like the slang terms that we had growing up, right? And
so we would also have different slang from north to south as well. Stuff that you would like. You're like, what? Yeah.
And I was talking to her. I was like, oh, what kind of slang terms are the kids using nowadays? And she's like, oh, all of the slang. We don't really have many new British slangs that I know of now. Everyone just uses internet slang words now, like skibbity and Ohio and Riz. And I'm like, oh man, that makes me sad because that's like part of our cultural identity that is just being homogenized.
Well, it's also like the regional identity.
Yeah, the regional identity as well.
To be like, you hear someone say that one term and you're like, oh, you're from my neck of the woods.
Now it's just like, oh, you are just on the internet now. I'm like, oh man, that's sad, man.
Yeah, that is true.
It's kind of homogenized slang in a way.
That is true.
Because of the internet, just like kind of like connecting everyone.
I don't know if I like.
I'm looking forward to the next Final Fantasy game that's gonna have skibbity in it.
Oh God, no!
That's like
someone's
15 years.
And maybe if they make another World's End with You sequel, that would work. But oh man,
oh God.
No, it's cool hearing about the whole like the timely language that you guys use, because in 16 I noticed that with I forget the character's name, the Odin's character. What was his name?
Character
Barnabas. When Barnabas does this whole like monologue, it's very like very poetic. And at first I was kind of like trying to wrap my head around what the hell is this guy talking about? But it was really cool because even though I didn't fully understand the full context the first time through, it did such a good job of like really, as you said, like painting that setting of like, oh yeah, this character, even though this character does not talk the way that I am used to, it is so believable in this world. And it just like adds that flavor and vibe in such a nice way. But at the same time, I was like, shit, I need to get up a dictionary. I don't know half these fucking words he's saying.
Well, I mean,
I enjoy learning the new words.
I do too.
It's so cool when you're like, what does that mean?
Yeah, but so many times I had to pause the cutscene to be like, wait, what was that word?
that was done on purpose. That's part of his character. I mean, if you get further in the story, you kind of understand from his character why he's speaking like that, why he's different from everybody else because of that background. And we wanted to, that to kind of be present.
It's a storytelling tool.
It's a storytelling tool. His language, his word choice, his timbre, the way he's talking is all part of that character, not just, way he looks or.
Yeah.